Hello and welcome. It is I, Iron Raven, back yet again with another new topic of discussion, or more of a review, if you will, for Top Gun Maverick. So I did see Top Gun Maverick on Memorial Day with my girlfriend. I actually went ahead and saw it in IMAX because it's like, well, if you're gonna see a movie like this, then IMAX seems to be the way to go. Now I haven't been to an IMAX show in like 3 years. Not since Endgame, I believe was the last one I actually saw in IMAX. But as far as an IMAX experience for a film like this, it is absolute perfection. I was like dead center right there, like just far enough back to where I feel like I could surround myself within the screen and just like if you look at the jet sequences, it's absolutely amazing. But that's just part of what makes this movie great. It's not just the action, not just the cinematography and knowing the practicality that they actually did with the jets in this film. It's absolutely amazing. Is that because I have a few things to try to run down with this. Is one being is that Tom Cruise. Now Tom Cruise, I mean, I've in my earlier years, I wasn't like some huge like Tom Cruise fanatic. I didn't really watch a lot of his films and stuff like that necessarily. But over the years, I mean, if you look at this latter half of his career, this man, this you could say some things about Tom Cruise, sure. He may be a bit eccentric, and with the Scientology, so you could say some things here and there. He does seem like he could actually be a genuinely cool dude. If you're a fan, if you meet him, so he seems like he can be pretty down to earth. But for the most part, though, what's important is that this guy always brings it in this part of his career, especially considering his age and also like just how well he keeps himself up and everything to where he could manage to pull off this type of stuff. It is absolutely amazing. I cannot help but applaud this man for the work that he puts into these films. How is this guy managing to do some of the best films of his career, some of the best sequels to his franchise films after 36 years? That is absolutely insane to me. Mission Impossible Fallout, that was the sixth entry in that franchise, and yet that was somehow the best one. I've that is one of the few franchises I could actually say, like the only one really at the top of my head, where the films themselves are pretty much like on a steady upturn with each sequel. Like they're actually gradually getting better, with like the exception of maybe Mission Impossible 2, that was a slight dip. But after that, I was like, all the films are technically elevating, and the last one was the best one. And if you look at the original Top Gun, now, full disclosure, I didn't watch the entirety of Top Gun up until the night before this movie. It's one of those cases where you've seen all like the specific clips, you've heard all the certain lines, you've seen all the different reviews, especially like people poking fun out of it and stuff like that, some of the cheese in this, some of the maybe undertones there within that film. So it's one of those films where you feel like you've actually have watched without actually watching it. So it's just one of those movies that it takes a little bit of a back seat to where I don't get around to watching it until maybe a little bit down the line. And that was the case here. It was like, but for this one, it intrigued me before, and then everyone was saying like, "Oh, this is good, this is good," and so obviously, I wanted to go ahead and check that one out in its entirety before going into this one, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Obviously, it's very much a product of its time, like that perfect, like just '80s action film of that time is still fun. Absolutely, I would say that. But with this film here, what they managed to do, now I would say it takes a lot of similar beats to the original film, but what they do with those beats and how they manage their time is phenomenal. I would say that they pretty much elevated everything they did from the original film. It's a more mature version of that original film, but this film has a perfect balance, I would say, of action, the drama, and the comedy. I mean, I wasn't expecting to walk away from it like enjoying it as much as I did. Like I walked away from just like as the days go by, I'm just like that's just a really good film. Just the camaraderie, just where you find yourself with Maverick and how he's handling this new generation of pilots and what they're doing with and just the dynamic between them. it's just really, really good. And the cast, like, they have a fairly diverse cast. They have a female in there. They have one of the black dudes as a pilot and stuff like that. And that's another thing too, is that this film doesn't preach to you in any way, shape, or form like how mostly every other film nowadays does. It just is. It just takes what it is, and it just runs with it. It doesn't try to stop the film itself and tell you this and that. Be like, oh, yeah, Tom Cruise is a drunk now. Now you have this hot new female pilot coming in showing them how it's done and shit. No, none of that shit. It's like everyone is likable in this film. Like even the one dickhead character they kind of have in this film, which was kind of like Iceman in the original, is like they don't really have you like hate his guts by the end. It's like by the end of the film, you're on good terms with pretty much everybody, and that's what works. Again, it's just that camaraderie, the build up between that. And I will have to give also a great deal of credit to Miles Teller, who plays the son of Goose in this film, who they have looked exactly like the dude. Like you really do believe, like, man, that really is his son in this film. I really like the way that they handled that. I like the way that they built up the history between them and how you kind of find their relationship. It makes you feel like for someone like me who's not even a father, it makes me see something like that and be like, if I was in Maverick's shoes, who's someone kind of like who has to be like this father figure to this Rooster character, which is Miles Teller's character, then I kind of felt that because you really do get a sense of like him trying to do right by his old friend Goose and right by his son, trying to be a protector of him and all this stuff, and just the way that they handle that dynamic and the tension between them at times. I really did enjoy that. I feel like they really couldn't have done that much more better. Like I just really resonated with it, and that's pretty much throughout the whole film. It's just the relationships between these characters, however much history is there or not there, it just works. They just feel like real people, just kind of like how you would understand them going through situations like this and how they would interact with one another given certain situations of the past or whatever, and where the position they find themselves in. It's very, very simple and straightforward. It's really not a whole lot to it, but again, it's how they manage it and how they execute everything in this film. Because like I said, it does feel like it has a lot of the repeated beats. Like with Jennifer Connelly's character, she's very much like the character from the original film and that love angle. It's not too over the top or anything, but it just feels natural. It just feels real. You're just engaged with it the whole time, and the supporting characters as well. John Hamm, in the position that he's in, being a superior of Maverick's character, just what bit that he's in the film, he's very, very good, and I absolutely get behind him throughout this film and everything. And like I said, by the end, you just feel great, like I said, by the end of it. And they don't specify like who they're going up against, like who's the enemy. They kind of leave that ambiguous. They don't state specifically, so it doesn't date the film in that regard. It doesn't offend anybody or this and that. It doesn't try to make a statement. It's just this story strictly, and then by the end, like I said, when you're going through the whole sequence and everything, you're just engaged absolutely 100% without having a lot of extra weight, and all like this extra preachiness to try to bog the film down. The film just is, and it works. Now, I will say the end of the film, as far as the mission itself, it did kind of ring a little bit Star Warsy. And if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about in a certain aspect, just a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. It really is like just a minor thing. I just found it kind of amusing, but it's badass though. Like when you actually watch this film, and again you consider the legitimacy of the jet flying in this film, and just the way it's shot, and just how the way they like the angles in the cockpit, like when you're just like getting that angle. Like I'm in the theater, and it's one of those films to where like when you're seeing certain shots, you're literally just going like this, because you feel like you're actually in that damn jet. Especially like I said, when you're in IMAX, it's just like you're absolutely engaged with it from start to finish, and that's what makes it work so well. And another thing too I want to mention is that Val Kilmer. Now we all know the state that Val Kilmer is in. It's very unfortunate, and you do feel bad for the guy, seeing how he is. But I will say this: where you see other films fail trying too hard to bring back legacy characters and trying to force them in and trying to have these forced sentimental moments, like they try way too hard to where it just kind of falls flat and almost comes across as comical a lot of the time. There is a scene with him in this film between him and Maverick, and I will say the way that they handle this, especially for someone like me who hasn't even been like some major Top Gun fan over the years, who has just seen the one film prior, going into this, I felt that relationship. Like I felt like I've been there the whole time, and just what little bit of time he's given, without even really speaking any words. Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise in this scene are absolutely phenomenal. I'm not even exaggerating. It's not even that long of a scene, but what you get of them together, it doesn't feel hammed in, it doesn't feel forced, none of that shit. It just works. It just works as a good, solid, sentimental moment between two old friends. And it works so damn well. Again, it felt like if I was best friends with somebody like who's, you've been friends for a long ass time, maybe one's in a not so good state, and you just have this conversation, just this moment of humanity between the two of them, just trying to figure out, like I said, where do you go from here? And it just works. It just works. Like, that is one of the best scenes I've seen in a while. Again, it's so simple, not a whole lot. It just works. Just the way that they execute it, and the way they brought in Val, and it felt like they were bringing him in just to like hang him out there like a piece of meat and doing all this nonsense. It's like, no, it worked perfectly and served both characters so well. Like, I just had to applaud it. And that is another thing too. It just, like, that really won me over as well. Because again, with what a lot of films are doing now, how they are just forcing so much crap in, and how they're trying so hard to bring back certain characters, only just them, like they're waving keys in front of your face. This film just executes everything so perfectly. It did everything it needed to do. It's not too much and it's not too little. It just works. It absolutely does. And that's why I have to praise this film. Now, with that said, I can't say it's like, I mean, honestly, to be perfectly honest, I would say this is practically a perfect film. At least as far as like sequels go. As far as like a perfect sequel, and taking what was before, elevating all of those elements and maturing it, and especially, like I said, that one just kind of this like 80s, time capsule of a film 36 years later to get this, especially like, yeah, no one's really asking for some major Top Gun sequel. Like, no one was really asking for it like that necessarily. But what they managed to give us, and like I said, with what Tom Cruise is willing to do, I mean, he is just, I have to give him all the credit in the world. And what they delivered here, I have to say it's practically a perfect film for all of those reasons. Anything I could like really complain about would just pretty much be a nitpick. It just delivers everything that you really want out of a good, solid action blockbuster. And I don't mean that just saying like, oh yeah, it's just a two-dimensional film, you get some fun stuff here. And it's like, no, again, I would say it had the perfect balance of action, drama, and comedy. The comedy itself, when they had it in certain moments, it just worked. Again, it just felt natural. You just have that camaraderie that just runs throughout the film, and you feel it the entire time, and you just relate to the characters that much more with each ongoing scene. So, like I said, with that said, I would say it's just a damn near perfect film on all of those regards. And so, with that, I'm not saying it gets a gold star just for not being like those other films out there who try to do all this shit. I would say it earns that gold star because it just is a good, solid film that just hits all the right notes and elevates everything from that original film. Like, I just have to give all the credit in the world to Tom Cruise. Now, I know Christopher McQuarrie, I believe it said that he wrote some of the screenplay, maybe even did some producing, and he's been directing like the last few Mission Impossible films. Between Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, man, these two are absolutely great together. Like, they are just killing it. And like I said, the latter half of Tom Cruise's career, like, is one of the best I've seen at his age. And knowing that you have all these sequels to these franchises of old, from the 80s and 90s, and how you're managing to do some of your best work, not just in your career, but within those franchises, and somehow elevating these and making them that much better, knowing that typically each ongoing sequel just kind of declines most things. I don't know how they're doing it, but damn it, they are just pulling this shit off. And where this film leaves you, I could honestly say I would say it's perfect as it is, and that it works as a great pairing with the original film. But hell, honestly, if they did a sequel, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad in the slightest. You do another Top Gun movie where he's going off on a mission doing something where it's just full fledged, like just thrill ride from here on, without all sorts of like maybe training new people and stuff like that. If you just do that, I wouldn't complain. I could easily see where they could do that, and I'm sure they would make bank doing that. Somehow he's managing to pull it off, but I have to give Tom Cruise all the credit in the world. The dude is pulling off some amazing stuff. Really, the last true action hero of this caliber, for him to be the star of the film at center stage and willing to do what he is doing. I can't imagine the insurance that the studios have to put on Tom Cruise with all these films that he does. But the man delivers. I mean, he is a true, honest to God, professional. Top Gun Maverick. I know it's been out for a little bit, but just want to give my thoughts. Yeah, it's just a damn good film. Any complaints would just be a nitpick, which I have like next to none because of what this film managed to do. I have to give it all the credit just for doing what it did, and it's a really solid time. I look forward to watching it again at some point, and if they do a sequel, I'll be there. I'm all for it. But anyway, yeah, just to top this video off, thank you very much for watching if you did. More content to come like this, reviews, other topics, video game streams, all that good stuff. I am Iron Raiden, and I am out.